Yes, so my name was covered by Chris, so my name is Igor, and hello everybody, welcome, and first of all, thank you for taking the time in this afternoon period. So everybody who is here, your time is worth double than before noon. I have even been given by my colleagues who are helping us here a lot of money, and so I will be just sharing it around in case there are good questions or good comments, which are very welcome during this presentation. So as the slide says, my former role is the territory manager, and I'm covering the Adriatic region, which is kind of connecting all the people who are here. Slovenia, then Croatia, and then everybody else. Usually I start with the country where I am. But as I said, Slovenia, a great place to be, a very developed market considering IT. I do cover networking as a focus for 7 years and maybe 7 even before that in telco industry. Quite a long time I've been there. The security topic, quite honestly, I've been doing for a few years, and it's one of the most interesting parts of the networking, and it's growing a lot. And Aruba Network as such, which is a company owned by or is a part of Hewlett Packard Enterprise, was acquired more than 2 years ago, fully integrated, and we have been taking a lot of market share, gaining the trust of our customers and our partners, which is great. Aruba Networks is investing a lot in security, and actually the biggest investment we did recently was in the area of security, more concretely in UEBA, so User Identity Behavior Analytics part, which is something I will cover today and focus on. But in order to better explain why are we doing UEBA, something which is considered one of the most complex areas in security, so machine learning, artificial intelligence in security. Security itself is extremely complex. So why do we acquire such a portfolio? And why Aruba Networks at all? Why would you consider such a networking vendor? And I think this picture explains it best. It shows our full portfolio. It shows exactly what Aruba Networks is covering. We are mostly known, if we are looking just the marketing side, on Wi-Fi. So you will see for past 16 years, #1 Wi-Fi technology vendor in the world. Usually you will see Aruba somewhere. People who are quite deep in networking, who know the tips and tricks, always bet on the Wi-Fi part of Aruba Networks. But the story is much, much broader than just Wi-Fi. We cover also the wired layer, also the software management intelligence, the security part, and this big picture is extremely important for security also, because security can be quite a problem if you have a very, very mixed infrastructure with many, many, many vendors, a switch from this vendor, an AP from this vendor, a management console from this vendor, a security solution from this vendor, a server from this vendor, a storage from this vendor, and so on and so forth. So you are exposing your whole IT by doing these mixed and matched, because usually what is in IT? Whose fault is it if something happens? The other guy. So that's a big comparative advantage of Aruba, that you have everything in one place. And how do you have it? Today we will be focusing on these two parts, which is policy management, user identity behavior analytics, network access control, just one part of everything that you usually need when you are designing a high quality network. Even the 10 gig, 40 gig, 100 gig core switching products, modular big boxes are here in the Aruba Networks portfolio. So this is a big advantage. When you buy Aruba, what do you buy? The highest quality on the market. This is our position. The most on the right you are, it means that you are buying high quality, reliable infrastructure. We are not the only one in this leader quadrant. Always only the best words for every single competitor. Of course, my job is to explain the comparative advantages of Aruba. So usually it means high quality, which means that you can relax. When you install the network, you make an investment on 5 years. You don't do it for 5 months. You want a long-term partnership with that company. You want pre-sales, sales, and post-sales support of that company and all your partners which are on the market, which we have very much in, plus our distributors, example, Kliko, who is working today with us on this conference. So, is Aruba Network, if we start from the basics, how secure are our products? For the past 16 years, the most toughest security customers in the world, and you can see some of the names here below, have been using Aruba Networks in Wi-Fi and wired, especially in Wi-Fi, where it's usually believed that network, a wire is more secure than just the Wi-Fi. Aruba and some of the more advanced vendors show no. The speeds on Wi-Fi today are catching up to the speeds on wired. And yes, if you do it right, the wireless part can be as secure as a wire. If you do it right. If you do it, just install antenna, which is receiving signal, of course you will not have the security you need. So that's why the best and the biggest have always been betting on Aruba. Let's just take one of our public global customers, Microsoft. Every single office is on Aruba. And there's a reason for that. Many local references in this region. I have some of the biggest hotels, 5,000 APs in total, which we installed. That's Aruba. And this is the area we are very comfortable with. This is the networking part. Ports, connectivity, power for our APs, a very broad portfolio that you can select from and choose whatever you need. Maybe you need a 10 gig, 40 gig switch. Don't forget, you can get this on Aruba part. Or you need something basic just to connect your APs or a laptop or a device. That's Aruba, lifetime warranty, certified, not 16 years, but with H3C, 3Com legacy and so on. This portfolio has been here for more than 20 years. APs, one of the broadest Wi-Fi portfolios you can get. Wi-Fi APs are the access for many of the devices that we have here, and how many of them are a potential threat to a local network. They are going through these APs, so they do have to be high quality products which have something more. Each of our products has an integrated firewall. It has DPI, QoS. It looks at every single data that passes through this AP with up to theoretical 1.3 gigabits per second speeds. It looks at what's there, but it also looks at application. And this is done basic. This is no license. This is just a box. You just install it, it starts. You don't need anything extra to start with security step number 1. What exactly is on your network, what's passing through, what can you block, and so on. So that's how we start, but this is really simple. Then we have the management. We have the Wi-Fi, for example. A product like Airwave is managing the whole wired infrastructure. So you need the data from that tool in order to know exactly what is happening on your network. We will be talking about UEBA, User Identity Behavior Analytics. Where does a system like that get the information from? Systems like this, products like this, they need to get the information from somewhere. Airwave is one of the ideal sources of this information. There are some embedded technologies which are unique to Aruba that look at exactly what kind of traffic is being done on an IP. I can give you an example from Slovenia. One of our partners did a great example on this. They said one small company had only one Aruba AP, three in total, but only one showed a huge spike in traffic to Dropbox. And what was behind that huge spike? What happened? That person never did such a big traffic to Dropbox in the past, which even the basic AP shows already. It turned out that this person worked in finance and was fired. So could a firewall, could an IPS system stop this? Because that's an internal user. It's a safe user, it's a user you trust, it's a director of finance. How can you stop that person to do all of this? A simple network administrator who has zero knowledge about security saw this spike and said, let's stop that, something is fishy. So that's basic. You can do this with a basic Aruba access point. But for us, in networking, everything is a bit changing. So we can stop the people entering the network with many fantastic solutions which are also here presented and which are some of the biggest partners that the Aruba network has. We are always working with other vendors, and you will see that we are extremely open. We do not want to force the customer to use only our equipment. Most is multi-vendor. We want to work with the biggest security vendors in the world, and we do. We have an exchange program and a partnership. So there is internal attacks which happen when identities get stolen, username and passwords. There are new devices which are coming. It's easy when we have a laptop. This is an Elite Book, HPE. I know that. I know the product number of that. And I know what it can do on the network. But let's say there's some kind of a rogue AP here on the network, or there's a sensor for air quality. We will have a pool party. Is the air too moist for tonight, and so on? What is that device? It has an IP address, but it's completely unknown. What can we do? You need to profile it in the network. And the security teams are getting a lot of stress because maybe they have a networking infrastructure which is low quality, which has been done based on, I don't know what decision, but security was definitely not in the mind when they were buying those boxes. The users themselves are changing. We are changing completely. We are connecting from everywhere. I had a very urgent request today from our partner to look at our internal system, which is very tricky, very problematic. I was connected to this network here, it's very important also for me to be securely connected, because I don't care. I need to connect. I established a VPN tunnel. Okay, that's okay. But a lot could be done in between if the network is not high quality, if it's just basic access. So how does the CISO, or the Chief Security Officer, look like when we have the opportunity and the pleasure to talk to a person like that? Many organizations don't even have a dedicated person. Usually it's a network admin who now needs to work about security. When it's a dedicated CISO, that's great, but he looks like this, because everybody is changing how they are connecting. New people are being hired. The application generation Y, these people don't, the young, very people, they don't even want to put in the URL in the browser. They want an application for Google. Small things, you can see the change in behavior. For me, it's quite normal. www.google.com or whatever. For them, why is there not an application? I just click and it opens. It's very interesting what's happening. So they are new, but they are also bringing new threats. They are bringing them from the inside of the network, and they are bringing it from the outside. And traditional security parameters, just like all the colleagues during this day and tomorrow, are being broken all the time. Aruba solution, Clearpass. It's a name I hope you will remember. Let's keep it basic. If there are many networking networks in the fans in the audience, network access control. We could say that it's a solution for network access control, but it's so much more. It's a policy engine. Of course, it uses all the standards like radius, tackets for identification, snooping, profiling, and so on. It does accounting reports. It goes into deep dive of every command on the switch, which maybe changed the network in some way. It can put it back. I will explain this in Tackets Plus area. It also does BYO onboarding, and we even do marketing with it. So it's a very powerful open tool, which comes as a hardware appliance, or you could have it as a virtual appliance, and it's multi-vendor. It's not just Aruba. We will never force you to use something in order to use some of our other solutions. So what does it do? Clearpass as such looks at each individual person. So Clearpass could identify you each by name, and we could assign a policy for all of you individually and say, Igor, I will use myself as an example, cannot use this application. During the conference, he is not allowed to use Facebook. It's very strange, but yes, we can do that. So we can go per profile, create rules per person, but we can also create rules per device. We can say maybe only this device, which is here, which is being used by everybody. I have been spending half an hour on this device. I could have used it for anything. It's okay, it's clear. But maybe this device could have been profiled to be in a completely secured SSID VLAN, which cannot endanger the network of this hotel, which soon has to be GDPR compliant. This device has been open here full day to everybody. I just come, use, install whatever I want, and then someone brings it home and then puts it in their own network and says, fantastic. It's an open platform. Location. I can say that this device can connect to Wi-Fi or a port only in this room, nowhere else. Because unless the system is being upgraded or reinstalled or repurposed or someone else logs in, not the temporary user. So even with this simple rule on Clearpass, which is, you do that in 15 minutes, and I can invite you to come to the workshop tomorrow. We will have 2 slots assigned just to demonstrate this part. I could have saved a lot of security problems to this hotel or any other organization. And for Clearpass, this is really basics. And of course, the application. So we can decide which application, which device. When you combine all of this, you have a full NAT security engine. So what does Clearpass use? Networking standards. 802.11x, of course, it will use the rules that are on each and every AP when we want to profile a device like a laptop, a smartphone, and so on. But what happens if you are connecting a sensor, which does not react to 802.11x? It does not. You cannot put a certificate on it. You cannot control it. Maybe you will just use MAC authentication. MAC list, what devices can connect. You can profile each device and say this is an air quality sensor. Only that one has access to a specific tunnel. Tackets, why do we do that? Because we can go into deep dive on what has been done in the network before the problem started. And then maybe just put every version back. BYOD means that you can self-service. You can just connect. If we connect to this Wi-Fi network, for example, with an unknown device, we can immediately set a rule that every device which is not known to this system, which is not being used by members of this conference or people who work here, goes into a separate SSID, separate VPN dedicated VLAN. Simple rule, but it could save a lot of trouble to the local network administrator in explaining the network. So what do we use? Again, if you are in networking, DHCP, CDP, LLDP, SNMP, VMI, MAC, NMAP, and SFlow. This is what I found in the data sheets. So yes, all of this is being used in order to profile these devices. Let's say Chris, we will use him as an example. He is maybe just a contractor. He is here temporarily, but he's a very important person for this hotel, for this event. He needs different kind of network access rules, controls, than maybe us as guests or someone else. He's here temporarily. We will use some of the profiling protocol to make sure that he has the access that he deserves as one of the presenters of the conference. But on the other hand, there could be a small, strange device next to him connecting to the same network. So it's a completely different, it's not even a person, it's a device. This is what we do with Clearpass. We make certain rules that we know exactly who is coming to the network, from where. A printer, one of the worst devices in every single network because it can be used. Unfortunately, usually it has all the full rights in a network because it's a printer. But why? It should not have the same right that I have as a person. And so on and so forth. And of course, we can go per port. Don't look at Clearpass just as a Wi-Fi network access control tool. It looks at each individual port on a switch that is maybe even being used for power. Another example I use is a tunnel, a labyrinth. Unless you know the path and unless you are cleared which path you will choose and with what device and who exactly you are, you will not have access to the network. Or in short, you can't touch this. So that's why I chose the very embarrassing intro song. So everybody was like, why? Why that one? So yeah, MC Hammer said it really well. You can't touch this, but the network administrator can simplify it and say, because of specific rules, you can't touch this, because you don't know exactly where you need to go. You are not using the device I told you that you can use. You are not being profiled. This is what you can use Clearpass. You can profile a laptop, a smartphone, a tablet, and say, we will issue a certificate. So Clearpass is even used as a certificate issuing engine. Example, RFC 7030, it's standard more or less. It can be used to install certificates on each device, and unless that device does not have the certificate, of course, you can't touch this. You cannot answer the net, you cannot access the corporate network. Is your device compromised, jailbroken? Does it have an installed malware, virus? Is there anything problematic on this device? If the Clearpass cannot, he asks the smart guys. He asks Checkpoint, Palo Alto, Fortinet, and he says, look, what do you guys think? Is this device okay? So if in your database this is all okay, I will then let it into the network. So that's why we want to partner. We don't want to say we are the only solution. We are there. We could be one management platform, and usually we are. People like to use Clearpass just to unify the security access in their organization. So what happens if they don't comply? They get quarantined. So I already mentioned the IoT story, which this is where Clearpass is very important to be used. So the lady already warned me, but I will be in time. So that's how we use Clearpass as kind of a grouping engine where we can, I will let you a few minutes to, thank you. It's usually, you lose attention with such beauty on the stage. So I also lost words, so I will just continue. So Clearpass is a multi-vendor solution, and as I said, the partnership with our partners is very critical. We even have some of our greatest networking competitors here on the slide, because we say, why fight? If you have something good which the customer likes, our solution will use that in order to make the customer and the partner happy. So this is the exchange engine that we do. And what happens if something really does go wrong? You can use Clearpass to notify you as a network administrator. It can notify the customer. It can notify internal resources or people who are just guests. So, or in short, like every single network admin would say, you can't touch this because your device has been compromised. It has been broken. So, we go into the next stage where we did the biggest investment recently in Aruba history, where we bought a company called Niara, but it was now rebranded into a solution called Introspect. In short, Introspect can be explained relatively fast, but it takes time to go into deep details. Introspect is being used to identify text from within. There was a good presentation in the beginning when a colleague says, we can defend the network, but what do we do when an employee or a malicious person or someone who is breaking the law is using the credentials of the employee? It could take us up to 90 days to identify that something is wrong. 90 days is enough to copy the whole database of the company. So that's why Aruba invested into Clearpass and connected everything that Clearpass does, but is automating a lot of the work which usually needs to be done manually by the network administrator. It's a machine learning algorithms. 100 of the most advanced industry machine learning algorithms are already embedded into Introspect. So this is public information. Introspect looks at the network. It looks at what Clearpass does. It looks at what the network administrator does. It looks at what the network administrator said is okay to be done in the network, but it learns. It looks at this behavior and then, after a while, makes its own policy and decisions on what can be done in the network. Always it's best to explain by examples. So let's say that before I explain on the examples, one of the most important things about Introspect is the fact that it uses a lot of sources of information. From the simple 802.11x on the access point, it looks at packets, it looks at flows, logs, alert, even some cloud data, everything that is going on the network in order to make smart machine decisions. But it doesn't make those decisions by itself. It asks the network administrator. It looks what the network administrator did in the past. And it's not a big scale project. It can be installed in a relatively small environment. Maybe 500 people have to be, in order to use the full benefits of a solution like Introspect. And in order for us to be as efficient as we can, we are partnering with many of the biggest security names on the market so that Introspect has the best data which is currently on the market and make decisions on the network. So this is an example just to show the dashboard of Introspect, which is looking at interesting data like this is a person, her name is Michelle Johnson. And what she did is she did everything okay. Everything in her past was quite okay, but suddenly she started uploading a lot of information to a new country. So Introspect looks at the IP destination address, unless it's masked or something like that. Usually it's not because it's an internal networking system. It looks at that information and says, well, suddenly Michelle started broadcasting a lot of information and sending it to country XYZ. This is a bit strange. She never did that in the past. Why now? Who is she? Let me as Introspect, let me notify the networking administrator and tell him, look, something is going on there. What do you think? Is this okay or not? The network administrator can say, no, this is really bad. No, stop, quarantine. And Introspect says, okay, now I know. So next time someone does that, I will put the user into temporary quarantine and notify you. You don't have to look at every single log and every single traffic which is going on. I will do that for you. I will learn. I will cooperate to you. In the long run, we will be making the whole network safe. Large Dropbox upload. This is something that is extremely simple to do on each individual Aruba access point. As I said, it's no problem. You can see this traffic. But is there someone there helping you do this? Yes, there can be a dedicated person, but if you have a bigger environment, more devices, IoT devices, more and more IP addresses connecting to your network, you cannot check everything. You need extra help. And then you use Introspect, who learns and says, Clearpass, please stop this access. No, this device is doing something wrong. You will block that traffic. Interesting case for me, which is even looking at geography. So this is something that Introspect learned and said there is a person who is connecting from one location. I think it's Toronto, and it was in this case. But it started in the next 5 minutes, the same device, the same user name and password started accessing the system in Singapore. So something is wrong, and it even shows you, it means that this person had to travel 1,000 kilometers to reach the other side, so something is wrong. We cannot allow this. I would recommend that we put the second user into quarantine, because this one is obviously our trusted, he did nothing wrong, but the second one is problematic. So you don't have time, the network administrator doesn't have time to check these correlations between connecting. We could look at each individual, but this is how the machine learning part of Introspect is helping us solve these problems. So you basically have a very powerful, intelligent, new security employee inside your network helping you do some things. So this is very advanced, and it requires a good demo. It requires a good show. If you have individual cases, we are so open to work with you individually. As each customer or partners, there is a dedicated team, 6-7 people who will just communicate with you in case you are a CISO. If you are a security officer who wants to know more, you will have a dedicated team who will work with you in cooperation with our partners and distributors, and they will look and is this product okay for you, what is needed, and so on. Where can you meet people who are doing this? I'm just using the local patriotism thing, but it's a regional, this is the biggest IT event in the history of Croatia, I believe. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it is international. Locally, we had pretty big events, but international means that whole Europe is already invited on the 4th of June to Šibenik, Croatia, which is full Aruba installation. We have close to 1,000 APs, 3 different locations in Croatia. We have been they have the biggest conference center in the region. So up to 1,000 people on one floor, 1,600 on another, 3,000 people in one small location. Not small, quite big. This is where we will have the biggest Aruba European conference called EMEA Atmosphere. You are all invited. So if you are interested in this, not for free, there's a quotation. But still, it's a great event to come if you're a security and networking expert and who would like to know more about solutions like Clearpass or Introspect. In case you don't want to wait until June, this is a spectacle. This will be a huge, the biggest digital video screen will be there, and a lot of extra things, plus all the experts. But in case you don't want to wait that long, tomorrow there will be a workshop, if you look at your agenda, 2 separate workshops where you can learn more about Clearpass, and we can also discuss Introspect. So I hope this was informative, interesting, and I cannot say anything else except thank you for your attention. In case there is even more time, I could answer a few questions or give the word to my next colleague.
Thank you very much indeed, Igor.
Thank you.